Hi there, Cornelia from Piping Petals. Welcome to my online tutorial for assembling a cupcake bouquet. Piping beautiful buttercream flowers is just one side of the story. Now you need to know how to present your creations in an eye-catching way, which is also going to be strong enough to be lifted or transported. In this tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate how to create the structure for a 7, 10, 12, 14 and a 19 cupcake bouquet. We're going to use cellophane and tissue paper to create a theme. I'll show you how to add a bow to your bouquet, plan the flower arrangement, the center flowers and the colors in a bouquet, and then I'll show you how to add your cupcakes to your bouquet structure. This tutorial focuses on the assembly of the bouquet, but if you would also like to know how to pipe the buttercream flowers shown in this tutorial, then please refer to the relevant courses or individual flowers to learn more about that. Let's get started. So first off, we're going to cut some cellophane paper. The cellophane paper you need to use is what we'll call a florist grade. It needs to be quite a thick cellophane paper because you want it to stand up on the sides of your bouquet structure. If you use quite a flimsy and a thin cellophane paper, it's not going to stand up. So the one I'm using is 38 micron thick and it's about 80 centimeters wide. So I roughly 80 centimeters wide, I cut roughly a square of this for any of my cupcake bouquets, whether they are 7 up to 19. I cut roughly a square of this. So we're just going to go over this side. Perfect. We'll put our cellophane to one side. Next, we're going to lay some tissue paper on top of your cellophane. And this is the tissue paper it will show on the outside of your cupcake bouquet. So you could very well just use white, which a lot of people do. But I find using some colored tissue paper brings your whole cupcake bouquet together with the colors of your flowers. So I'm going to demonstrate at the end of this tutorial a cupcake bouquet of 19 lilac and moss green cupcakes. So I'm going to add one piece of moss green tissue paper and you place it diagonally from one corner of your cellophane to the other corner. And I'll also add one sheet of lilac in the other direction. Now, tissue paper usually come in quite a standard size. This is, I think you call this a A2 size, but they usually come in a very standard size. So you just use one sheet and make sure you just place it nicely at a 90-degree angle with your previous one. Perfect. Right. I'm just going to put something on top there to keep it still. So this is the trick to a cupcake bouquet. We are using cups to keep our cupcakes in the air. So I'm going to show you a 19 cupcake bouquet, but I'm going to stop every time we get to a smaller size and I'll explain to you how to work with that size. Now, if you do this a lot, I can highly recommend having a heavy-duty sellotape dispenser. I cannot tell you how much time this will save you in your life if you don't have to cut every piece of sellotape you use. So literally just stick it to the inside of your cup and push it over to the next side. And make sure for the first 3 you are creating a straight line. Otherwise you're going to struggle with the rest of your bouquet. There we go. Okay, so that's our first 3. Now we just keep adding to the structure. So for a 7 bouquet, which is my smallest one, we're going to add a row of 2 on this side and another 2 on that side. And you just add your cups in the gaps from your previous row. I actually like to switch it around like this. So with your 7 cupcake bouquet, you've got a central flower and 6 surrounding flowers. So think about your color scheme, how many flowers you want to pipe off each. You can very easily do 2 of the same flower across each other there and there, another 2 there, another 2 there, and 1 different flower right in the middle. I often revert to my rose, which is taking centerpiece for a lot of my 7 cupcake bouquets. Now the way to put this into your cellophane and your tissue paper structure, I've already put a large board there for our 19. For the 7 cupcakes, I use a 7-inch cake card and a cut edge one. This is terminology you might not be familiar with if you're not in the cake industry, but cake cards are basically what we use for big cakes to place them on or to use between tiers of big cakes. And this is the thinnest version, so the cheapest version you can get. The cut edge just means the silver doesn't go over the edge, but that doesn't matter for us because we're not putting this inside cake or inside food. All I'm using this for is to place my cups on top, and I actually stick them down with a bit of sellotape, and that's going to give you a nice structure to hold the weight, and also if you need to lift it or transport it, it's basically like holding a tray. So it just creates a bit of support structure for your cups. So this was our 7 cupcake structure. We're now going to add 3 cups to this to form a 10. So for adding 3, I'm literally going to add a cup at the end of every one of the 3 rows. So if we keep on in a dead straight line on that one, and then add your other 2 cups in the gaps. And there you've got a 10. Now a 10 is a bit of a funny shape. You don't have a round shape anymore. And you might, as you can see, it's not so stable. We might want to add just a piece or 2 of sellotape just to strengthen our structure now. So the 10 gives you still an oval shape, which is absolutely fine. I mean, not all flower bouquets come in round shapes. You often do get an oval shape. I don't advertise this, so I don't sell a lot of the 10s, but I have done in the past. And what is quite nice about the 10 is you've got 2 cupcakes right in the middle. So again, as you're thinking about your colors and your configuration of how you want to position your flowers, I would possibly suggest 2 roses right in the middle. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So maybe 4 sets of 2. So you've got 4 different types of flowers surrounding your 2 roses in the middle. Now in terms of a cake card, I'll use the same than I use for my 12 cupcake bouquet, which is an 11-inch cake card. And the reason is the middle row, the 4 cups, is equal in size for the 12 cupcake bouquet as well. So you need the same size cake card. So it will sit on your cake card like that before you put it in your paper. So adding 2 more cups. Let's do it on this side. The structure is getting a little bit big now, so I'm just going to add a few more pieces just to make sure it's strong. You can lift it up like that and you'll see where the weaknesses are. Perfect. So the 12 cupcake is getting towards a round shape again, not quite round, but this is a very popular choice. I think it's because 12 is a dozen and people like to order a dozen cupcakes. So this is a really popular choice. Now, what is really nice with the 12 is if you've got 3 center cupcakes or flowers. So you can really play around. What I would suggest with the 12 cupcake shape is either have 3 fondant topped cupcakes in the middle, which is quite popular. So you might have a fondant topped cupcake saying happy birthday, one with the age and one with the name. And you surround that with 3 sets of 3 flowers. That creates a really nice birthday or themed bouquet. Or else what works really well with the 12 cupcake bouquet is 4 sets of 3. So having 4 completely different flower types, but making sure your colors mix together and you make sure you fit your flowers, distribute them equally in your cupcake bouquet. So for one type of flower, it will be 1, 2, 3. And then you can have another one, 1, 2, 3. You see what I'm doing? So you are distributing it equally amongst your 12 flowers. So for the 12 cupcake bouquet, same card than before, the 11-inch cake card, it fits perfectly. And you just stick them down to make sure they don't move around. So adding 2 more. Move it around like this. There's your 14. Again, we're moving to a bit of an oval shape. So personally, I don't sell a lot of these, but again, useful to know how to do it. And you've got 4 central flowers in your 14 cupcake bouquet. Now, something to keep in mind, I have been asked, why do I use sellotape? Why don't you just use a stapler? It will go much quicker just going tuk, 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 tuk. And that is food and safety reasons. So if you can imagine if the staples come loose and it might stick into one of the bottoms of your cupcakes, you don't want to have a staple end up into a customer. So sellotape all the way. Stay away from staples. It's not safe. Okay, so that was our 14 cupcake bouquet, and now we're going to add 5 more cups to get to our 19. Carry on with your middle row, make a straight line, and adding the other 4 to the end of each row. You can use any type of cup for making your cupcake bouquet. If you use paper cups, it's of course environmental friendly. You get various sizes of cups, so one thing I would say is see what's the size of the cup that you like to buy from either an online store or your grocery store. See what's the opening of the cup and work with that. So I typically use, my cupcake cases are actually muffin cases, and those are bigger than your normal cupcake sizes. So although these openings are quite big, it's like a half-pint tumbler size. My muffin cases fit quite nicely into this, but if you use a smaller cup, you might want to use a smaller cupcake case. So just play around with what works for you. Right, we've got our 19 cupcake structure. And we're going to attach this to a 14-inch cake card. Now, depending on the type of cup you use, if you've got a flat bottom, you can just do a reverse loop like that with the sticky side of the sellotape on the outside, stick it to the bottom of the cup and just push down. But these particular cups have got a lip, so I can't do the same thing. So I'm just going to use the cups that's right on the edge and just stick them around the side of the cake card like that. There we go. It's just to make sure they're not moving around too much. Let's do that one. There we go. So you can throw it in the air a bit and they're not going to move. Perfect. So place this right in the center of your tissue paper. And we're going to place something heavy on top just to help you lift all the paper and stick it all together. If you've got an extra pair of hands, it really helps just to hold it all together. I often don't, and I do a million of these a day. So something strong on the top to give you a bit of weight, and we're going to tie all the paper up. So we've got our nice heavy bowl, which is standing at the top. Start anywhere, and you're going to lift your cellophane up. Use your one hand on the inside, one hand on the outside, and you just, with that finger on the inside, help to create a fold. Make sure your tissue paper is in that fold, and stick a piece of sellotape right there. Now the height I'm doing that at is, I can feel with my finger there, it's the height of the cups inside. And you'll see in a minute why you don't want to stick your sellotape any higher than that. Just rotate it. It's easier to do this straight in front of you rather than going around like this. So there's no set way of how far every fold should be. I do it, I don't know, roughly 10 centimeters. It's just, you'll see it's sort of natural where the paper folds next. So we continue in this fashion, just going around your bouquet, creating folds. When you create your fold, just pull the paper nice and tight from the side we're working from. So nice and tight so you don't have any gaps there. And we're getting right to the end now. There's just going to be one fold left. Make sure you pull this one nice and tight. There we go. And stick. Okay, there's our beautiful cupcake structure. Now, if you sell this to customers, my next step is to decide where is the front. I know it might look quite uniform at the moment, but sometimes it's not. So I like to have the front of my bouquet where the tissue paper is just a little bit lower so that you can see the cakes. So I'm going to choose that as my front. So my next step would be, I won't do it for this tutorial, right at the back, you add your food label. Very important to show all your dietary requirements. Has to be on your bouquet somewhere if you're selling to the public. So that will be right at the back, and then we're going to add a bow to the front. So I like to use the pull flower ribbon. It's really nice and easy, and you're not going to struggle with making up your own bow. So with these guys, on one end, you just pull the inside ribbon. There we have a beautiful bow. I don't know about you, but I don't have the time to do this by myself. So there we go. We're cheating a little bit, and we're now going to attach this to the front of our bouquet and to wrap these around. Now, as you can see already, this is purple, so I continue with a color theme. So I really am an advocate for using all your paper and your material to bring your color scheme together. Tidy that up. Pull this tight. There we go. And that is a beautiful bow right in the front of your bouquet. So all we have left to do now is add our cakes to our 19 cupcake bouquet. So next we're on to our tissue paper. Now again, you can use any color you want for this, but I'm sticking to my color theme. You're going to see it really brings everything together at the end. Green is a really good choice to use if you're wondering what color should I use for my tissue paper. Green is a good choice because it creates the image of leaves between your flowers. So green is a good choice. Now I've already pre-cut some, but just to show you, this is the size of a standard sheet of tissue paper. And I typically use one sheet and I get 6 rows out of it, and I use 1.5 rows per cupcake to be very exact, 1.5 rows. Now it is going to depend on how big your cups are and how big your cupcake case is, because the purpose of your tissue paper is not only to look pretty and add to your color theme, but also to prevent your cupcakes from sinking into your cups. So that is the whole purpose of your paper. So for you, it might be less paper, it might be more paper, depending on your cup size and your cupcake size. So let's add our cakes. Perfect. Now, here is the reason why I said stick your sellotape at the cup level, because I like to do this. There we go. Open it up. You need some space to add your cakes, believe me. You've spent all that time piping perfect flowers. The last thing you want to do is squash them. So open up your structure and we're going to add our cakes to this. So just to talk a little bit through the 19 configuration, this is one of my favorite size bouquets because it's got a perfect configuration to be symmetrical. So for this you need 1 times 4 flowers and 5 times 3 sets. So I often use, as you know, my rose as my center flower. So I'm going to have 4 roses. So whatever you select as your center cup, I have 4 of those. So I'm going to have 1 rose in the middle, 1 rose there, 1 rose there, and 1 rose there. So that's 4. And then I'm left with 5 sets of 3 flowers. And we're going to distribute that evenly through the cupcake bouquet to show you what it looks like. So I like to scrunch it up, my tissue paper, just the first bit of tissue paper, get it into a bit of a square shape like that. And I'm adding a bit of green diagonally across your purple like so. And I'm going to add my roses first. So cupcake in the middle of your square piece of paper, wrap it around and place it where you want it. As easy as that. Beautiful. And look how beautiful the paper is looking with your flower. Goes perfectly with my color scheme of the flowers, and it creates this little look of leaves sticking out next to your flower, and it's hiding your cupcake case as well. Right, so we'll continue in this fashion and I'll show you the configuration. If you scrunch the paper up, it just creates a bit more volume. So it's just another hint to prevent your cupcakes from sinking in. Now you will notice I'm starting on the outside, working my way inside. And the reason I'm doing it like this is as you add your flowers, you end up with very little space right at the end, which might mean, well, it always means that you are actually pushing the flowers that you've already placed will be pushed a little bit in as you place the last flowers. So if you start in the middle and work your way out, the middle will end up being slightly sunken compared to the rest. So I actually like starting my way from the outside. It means you've got quite a tricky bit to add the very last flowers in the middle, but the middle flower is going to have a bit more height than the rest of the bouquet, which I think looks quite pretty. One, two, three. Next rose is over there. So equally spread out. My last rose is going to be in the middle, which we add at the last. Now I've got a mixture of lilac flowers, green and whites. So I've got peonies, 3 peonies in my bouquet, which is very similar in colour than my roses. So I'm going to add my peonies next, in the middle of 2 roses. And then the idea will be I flank it with white and green. So you can see where I'm getting to. You think about how you distribute your colours. There we go, we've got nice purple distribution. I'm now going to add 3 greenish hydrangeas and then 3 white magnolias. So in between 2 purples. Bring it sort of in from the side so you don't squash your other flowers. Now one little hint I can give you is don't get rid of your piping bags before you've done your bouquet assembly. I have had it in the past where my whole bouquet has toppled over. Another hint and tip for you, you'll see I do it equally around. A 19 cupcake bouquet is never going to topple over because it's got such a wide base. But I've had it with a 7 cupcake bouquet where I started adding at this end and worked my way around. And because of the weight of the cupcakes, the whole thing toppled over and I had to pipe my flowers again. Right, we'll do the 3 magnolias. One thing to keep in mind with both cellophane and tissue paper, and it's particularly important with your tissue paper, is you need it to be food safe. So, as I said, not so much for your cellophane because it's not really ever touching your cakes, but you do get food safe versus non-food safe cellophane. And the same with tissue paper. Make sure your tissue paper is acid free. It's usually, it says acid free and bleed free, like color bleed free, because your tissue paper is definitely touching your cakes. So that is our outer circle of flowers. We'll now do the inner circle and we're going to add the rose right in the middle. So I've got some Russian tip nozzles here and I'm left with purple buddleias. So I think I want my buddleias in between two other purple flowers, and that means, let's put that in there, and I'll put these then like that. When you get to the middle, I find a toothpick is quite useful to just push your cupcake in where it belongs, because with fat fingers you're going to squash your flowers. Usually when it comes to the point where you add your cupcakes to your bouquet, the buttercream would have set a little bit because it does form a bit of a crust, but don't test the waters because even with a set buttercream you can still squash it, believe me. You can see with this bouquet why I really like the buddleia. So just push your tissue paper out of the way, make a bit of space for the next one. Drop it in. So although the flowers are all lovely, they all at a similar flat level, and then adding your buddleias to your bouquet just adds a bit of height, which is really nice. And lastly, so if you work from the outside in like I do, then this is a nerve-wracking point to put your very last flower in. You've got a tiny, tiny little space in there. You will look at the space and think there's no way I'm getting my cupcake in there. But you will, and it's going to mean your center flower, which is the star of the show, is going to have a bit of extra height compared to your other flowers. So here we go. Wrap your tissue paper nice and tight. Make sure you just push the other tissue paper out of the way. And use a toothpick to now just gently push your rose into that opening. And there you have it. So you can see what I mean with the height. It's just got that little bit of extra height, and that is the star of the show. So you can wrap all of this up. And there we have a beautiful 19 cupcake bouquet in lilac, greens and whites. So the way to store your cupcake bouquet is just like it is. It can sit out in room temperature for 3-4 days if you didn't use milk in your buttercream. If you use milk in your buttercream, it will shorten the lifespan of your buttercream. So have a look at my YouTube channel as well, where I show you the recipe. Only use flavouring and water as the liquid to your buttercream. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please remember to leave me a review when you have a minute, either on Google or on social media channels. You can also subscribe to my Blooming Bakes YouTube channel for complimentary videos on how to make the best American buttercream for piping these flowers, as well as cupcake recipes and lots more. See you soon.